All right, we are back with another episode of Custody Queens Off the Clock. I'm Sam McBride. I'm here with my favorite blonde, Kristen Holstrom, for another episode. Just as a reminder to everyone out there, Kristen and I are California Certified Family Law Specialists by day. If you have any interest or need for a family law matter in California, please feel free to give us a call and go over to our CQ page. But for the purposes of this, we are really just going through our opinions. It's for entertainment. We are crime junkies on the side. And so we're so excited to start this channel. And we've received such overwhelming support from everyone. So thank you so much. Please continue to like and subscribe. Today, we are going to talk about the Laken Snelling case and just kind of giving an overview of that, preliminary thoughts as this case starts to head to trial. So for anyone that doesn't know about this case, there's a whole lot kind of surfacing and surrounding the internet, but really shocking details and tons of lingering unknowns. So Laken Snelling is a former University of Kentucky cheerleader who is now facing criminal charges after the unaliving of her newborn. So the trial phase is quickly approaching, but there are many, many remaining pieces that are missing.
Yeah, and I'm actually really excited for this case to go to trial. Some of the other cases that absolutely should have gone to trial over the last year, unfortunately did not. So I'm super excited to actually watch this. I think the cross-examination is going to be a masterpiece. That's one of my favorite parts of watching a trial. It's not only the cross-examination, but how does the other side kind of try to make it better? How do they try to rehabilitate that testimony? Obviously, Sam and I love evidence. That's what we deal with every day, even in our family law side. It's not always that you have evidence. Sometimes it's circumstantial. Sometimes you need testimony. You need the background. Why is this? What is the context? How is this relevant? Can we get it in? Can I get it in another way if it's not trying to actually prove what the issue is? Evidence is actually pretty complex, the rules of evidence, and it is pretty amazing, but it's not flawless. So, I'll leave it there. But I really enjoyed watching a lot of the Karen Reed trial for the second time, even the second round. So I am looking forward to this one. It's interesting to look at body language. What are the facial expressions? How do they respond? Obviously, the defendants are probably coached pretty heavily by their counsel on all of these things. We saw that a lot in the Koberger, even though it didn't get to trial. He spoke very, very, very few words. And at the sentencing, obviously, I'm sure that there was a lot of coaching of just trying to even not blink, because then you go on YouTube and they're counting how many times someone blinks in a 30-second period and comparing it to another person. So I'm excited. But in this case, there are allegations of concealment. There is disturbing reports about how she handled evidence and a newborn that was found unalived. Yet the official narrative still includes many unanswered questions. Let's walk through what is documented, what we don't know, and what we think the court still needs to resolve and to balance out. But we have a Kentucky cheerleader who appears to be far more interested in her love life with her boyfriend and the cheer team than it was to maybe not unalive a baby.
And this is just such a sad case to me. And I'm with you, Kristen. I'm very excited. It's kind of going to be a new part of Kristen and I's series to be able to live go through the trial and analyze the evidence and analyze the witnesses and sort of give our opinions on what that all means. But for what we know about this case so far is Laken Snelling is 21, was a senior at the University of Kentucky, and was a member of the cheerleading team. And this is all just what's being reported by the media. We haven't verified any of these facts. It's just what's out there. But on August 27th of 2025, in her off-campus home in Lexington, Kentucky, her newborn was found wrapped in a towel, placed inside a trash bag, and hidden in the closet. Just absolutely chilling, horrific facts. Now, again, remember, there is no conviction at this point. These are the allegations. They don't look good. But what we do know is that she is admitted to giving birth and potentially to cleaning up or tampering with evidence and then placing the baby and related items into a trash bag. So that is, again, chilling stuff.
Yeah,
The
and if we separate from what she's admitted of having the baby, right? And then it was her roommate was the one that was hearing noises, but she was the one that actually discovered the baby in the closet in the trash bag. So those are two actual facts that have been admitted, but I don't know that we know exactly who put the baby there, how it got in the closet, who put it in the trash bag. I think assumptions and inferences can be made, but I think that that's gonna be a very good testimony.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the local coroner's office has, as I understand, conducted a preliminary autopsy, and it's at this point inconclusive with the reported cause of death and manner of death. That doesn't mean they're not going to have an official cause of death. It just means that it's still pending. Remember, this case is pretty new. In the realm of cases and how long cases typically take to go to trial. From August 27th to now, it's not incredibly concerning that we don't necessarily have that yet. Kristen and I typically say we'd rather you move slow, get all the facts before you actually make some sort of determination to prevent what happens a lot of times, which is go down just one tunnel. And so the charges right now, the file charges include abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and the concealing of the birth of an infant.
Yeah, and this has actually gone pretty quick, right? So this was just last month, the end of August, or actually, sorry, we're in October. So a couple months ago. Look how quickly this case is going compared to David the rapper, which we haven't heard anything in well over a month since the remains were found. But a big part of the reason why this case is going to trial so quickly is that we do have an admission that she gave and that that baby was biologically hers. And you can start speculating what those defenses are going to be without really even knowing all of the facts. I mean, there's only a handful of defenses that are going to come up because clearly she can't say he didn't have a baby, right? She admitted to having the baby. There is medical testing that can be done to confirm whether or not a woman had a baby. And the wild thing about this is that the allegations are that the roommate's like, yeah, I was hearing all of these crazy sounds. I didn't know what they were. And I believe it was Laken went kind of out for the night. Like after she had the baby, she kind of cleaned herself up, got dressed, and allegedly went out for the night. And it was the roommate that went in her room and found the bag. And that was how this whole case kind of got brought to light. There's some very serious psychological issues going on with the ability to have a baby and allegedly put it in the bag. And I think she has actually admitted to that she had the baby put it in the bag. And her position is that the baby was alive immediately following the birth, which makes it a little bit harder for her defense.
And it's such a difficult case, but she at this point is pleading not guilty, or did at her preliminary court appearance. What do you take from that, Kristen?
I take for that. I think that we're going to see argument and a position that she might have believed that the baby was unalived shortly thereafter the birth. I think we're going to see that as a defense. I think that might be a little bit more plausible or believable if she didn't previously say in some sort of interrogation that there were signs of life when the baby was initially born. So I want to see what that timeline looks like. But I think we're also going to have some mental health issues that are brought up throughout this court process. I mean, it's very hard to claim insanity. I know everybody wants to throw that, and it's in every chat that anytime we have something that is this egregious and this hard for most of us to wrap our heads around, that everyone wants to claim that insanity. And from what I remember in law school and the bar exam, which was a very long time ago, is a very, very difficult defense to prove up on every single aspect.
And I think that's a great point. When I look at this not guilty plea, what I also think about is, and this is just from the point of view of the court process in general, I think of her charges. And with each charge, abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant, each of those charges is going to have a series of elements. And each of those elements is going to need to be met. And there are very technical and potential ways that someone may craft a defense to say, maybe I did admit to the following, but that doesn't necessarily make me guilty of what is charged. And that sounds like, what are you guys talking about? if she says she did it, she did it, she's guilty, we're done. Not necessarily, because as Kristen mentioned, there may be some mitigating factors, a defense, or she may be asserting, if she's not asserting some sort of temporary insanity defense, then she could be asserting another defense that her conduct does not meet the elements of a crime. Whether or not it does is a trial issue, which is something that Kristen and I are very interested and excited to candidly get into those facts.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked we don't see a charge related to like the homicide, to the unaliving of the baby itself. I was a little shocked to see that. I mean, obviously to have an abuse of a corpse, we are indicating that there was a human that is no longer alive because we're now abusing an unalived human, right? I am shocked that my guess is maybe there wasn't enough evidence to support that charge, which is often why some charges don't appear and others do. I think we're going to see a lot of experts. I think there are going to be more experts in this case than Karen Reed. And there was a lot in that case if you followed it. I think something that the defense is probably going to latch on to was yes, she might have indicated that there were signs of life at the time of the birth, but how long those signs of life lasted, or if those were not real signs of life. I think we're going to see something along with those defense. I think we're going to hear from very, very heavy hitters with respect to experts that are probably the best in their fields on both the prosecution and the defense. But I was very shocked not to see a charge regarding the homicide. And I hate to burst everyone's bubble, but I think we might see a plea deal in this one.
Yeah, we might. We certainly might. I think that there is some potential dispute as to whether or not you could prove if the child was alive or not, and I think that that goes back to the autopsy not yet being conclusive. With it being inconclusive, I think it might be a little bit hard to come up with that homicide charge. Those things could change though rapidly, and you could see an amended pleading or an additional charge. So I think time will tell, but I think it's a great point. Kind of shocking for me too, especially with all the admissions, but I wonder if that might be some of the holdup here.
No, I agree with you. For anyone that is hoping that Laken is going to get on the stand, I would bet every bone in my body she's not going to get on the stand. Every defendant has the right to not take the stand in their own case. It's actually rare that somebody does, because everything that they say can be twist turned, used against them, inconsistent statements, even if it's just a couple words. It is often the better route not to take the stand. But I do think we're going to see experts that are going to try to prove that there was very clear indication that the baby was alive at the time of birth, and therefore Laken was responsible for unaliving it. And then I think we're going to get a whole bunch of experts on the defense that are going to try to muddy the waters and cloudy the situation and say, how do we know that? How truly do we know that the baby was alive at the time the baby was either put in the trash bag or immediately prior to? That is a gray area. It's going to really come down to experts right there.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, the right not to incriminate yourself. So everyone has a Fifth Amendment right against incrimination. And so when you're building your case as a defendant, part of the strategy with your attorney is determining whether or not it behooves you to get on the stand and testify to your defense. And in some cases, I think it's totally necessary. And in other cases, you just can't, because it's not going to land the way you want it to. Maybe you have a concern regarding how the jury will take your testimony. And so, as Kristen said, often you will see criminal defendants not take the stand, and that is their right. The prosecution cannot force them to take the stand. With all that being said, it sounds like, and although this is an evidentiary hearing and maybe there's a preliminary motion on this, but with all that being said, it seems to me that her prior admissions would be something that the court could consider, and that if I'm the prosecution, I'm working hard to make sure those admissions are in evidence and in front of the jury, because if they don't have her story and they just have her prior admissions, based on the information I've seen, it's not looking too good.
No, I agree. And I think there was preliminary statements. And again, I would love to see the actual interrogation on this. We probably won't see it until trial or thereafter. But I do believe that there was some sort of statement along the lines of that she had heard a whimper and that there was a bit of fetal movement. But when you see a sentence that says a bit of fetal movement, what does that mean? What is a bit and what is fetal movement? I think you're going to get you're going to get an expert that might come on the stand to say that it is possible that the baby, if a baby is unalive, still could have made some sort of sporadic movement. I think we're going to get an expert that may come up and say that. Sometimes they reach a whole lot, but you guys have to remember, all you need is one jury member to stand their ground and to say that the prosecution has not met their burden beyond a reasonable doubt, that it was unlikely that the baby was not alive at the time of birth. And I think that that's what their entire defense is going to hang on. And then they're also going to prosecution's going to try to get at anything. Was there any witnesses that saw her belly moving? Did anybody know? I mean, obviously, if her belly was growing, um, that's a whole nother issue, whether or not people knew or didn't know. I'm guessing a lot of people had assumptions.
And I'm with you there. I know there's cases out there, and in fact, I had somebody that I knew growing up, I don't know them very well, that allegedly didn't know that they were pregnant until they were like 8 months pregnant. And I've heard it happens. It's shocking to me, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you could not know. And I know that's likely ignorant because there are those outlier cases, but I think maybe most of it or a lot of those are denial, shame, not admitting it. And of course, there can be those medical exceptions as well. But that's a huge red flag.
Yeah, I've had 3 kids myself, and I think it would be very, very hard not to see the changes in your body from beginning to end. Now, I get it. I was much older when I had kids. But I do think that that's something that's not going on her side as well. So we have a young, very young 20-year-old that is incredibly fit. I mean, she's one of the flyers on the stunt team, right? At one of the most impressive cheer schools in the country, the University of Kentucky. It would be very transparent that your body is changing on some levels when your body fat your body fat is so low and you are so lean, right? And social media, right? People love to post on social media. I bet you we are going to see so much evidence from her own personal social media where you are going to be able to make an inference that the body was growing and developing to potentially full term, right? That's another thing. We don't even know, was the baby full term? Was it not full term? I mean, that's another thing that they're kind of keeping us in the dark of a lot. And because the autopsy wasn't conclusive, I mean, I want to see that autopsy report. I want to see it. But if it was able to be birthed, through that normal process, it had likely developed towards that full term arena.
Yeah, and I think an interesting point is that we are going to continue to see a trend in these cases of social media evidence. And the days of quietly waiting for the police to really show what they have and the district attorney prosecution to say, hey, this is our case, are somewhat gone in my mind because there's so much information out there. There's such a digital imprint on all of us that you never know what can be dug up. And so to that, I think that certainly you never want to impede on an investigation. But I think a lot of the public in looking at what's going on in social media may be able to find some additional answers.
Yeah, and I think they're going to pull up all the old audio tapes or the footage or the social media from any of the cheer competitions, because if she was pregnant, usually you have spring and you have fall or whenever you compete. I don't know exactly when cheer competes, but Sam and I both played college soccer, and it's not just 3 months of the year. It's all year, right? You might have a bigger season and then you might have a more lax kind of just continuing to develop and play season. But my guess is that a lot of that footage is going to be pulled up to see if they can identify how obvious it was, right? Cheer costumes are pretty fitted.
Right. Was this truly hidden? Did anyone know?
Was nobody talking about it because she wasn't admitting it? And so was everybody just, ignoring the elephant in the room and just pretending like, okay, we're not acknowledging this. Maybe she's just put on 10 pounds. Maybe she had too much McDonald's last weekend. I don't know. Weird. I think the intent to conceal is going to be a really interesting one, because if she did admit giving birth and she did admit that there was signs of life, including the fetal movement allegedly, why didn't she call the police? Why did she necessarily kind of get ready and pretend like she didn't just have a baby and continue on with her 21-year-old life? I think that's a big issue for her to overcome.
I think it's a big issue for her to overcome too, because I think when you're in a scenario and it's a young girl, but we also have to look at the fact that this is an infant. And you have a young girl and you think, do they not know what to do or who to go to? Well, I mean, to an extent you can understand that, but not for this type of a crime, right? At some point you need the call. You need to ask for help. And I think if you had and there wasn't these additional steps, not only would we not be sitting here with at least this many charges, but you would also be able to believe the narrative a little more.
Yeah, and just to throw this out there, I know it's a little off topic, but every fire station is a safe haven. So for anyone watching this, you know someone that may not want to be a mom that is pregnant, or they may be scared, or they may be ashamed. I just don't know that this is something that everybody knows and everybody should know, because if she didn't have the ability to keep that baby, or she wasn't in a position to accept that she was having a baby and it wasn't right for her, had this baby just been dropped off at a police station or a fire station, no, nothing. Literally, I mean, they say it's like a baby in a basket. There's no questions asked. There's no questions asked. So if there's one person that Sam and I can reach that this is out there, every state, every city has them. And I think if she would have called 911 initially, regardless of what the state the baby was in, I think the situation would be much, much, much different for her.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to Kristen's disclosure to everyone that doesn't know it's true for most U.S. states and most stations. You do want to check your local station so you know. But additionally, the other element of it is that the baby certainly cannot be harmed. So you need to safely do it. There's a period of time to do it. There's a way to do it and a way to do it appropriately. So if you're in a position where you really don't know what to do, I can promise you, doing nothing, hiding it, is going to wind you up in a terrible spot, probably both emotionally, psychologically, and criminally.
Yeah, and there is always a solution. There's most always a solution to a problem, and sometimes it's harder going the route that may take a bigger toll on your emotions, or that you may not be mature enough to make these decisions. But had that baby been given a chance, if there was a chance, I'm not saying, but if that baby had a chance and was given a chance, then there could have been a way out for both of these. And I am not condoning what Laken has done whatsoever. As a mom, I am trying to remember that she is innocent until proven guilty. And I am a big, big advocate of that, as is Sam. But when I take my lawyer hat off, it's like this was such an easy fix to both sides of this, without a 21-year-old facing all of these horrific charges and likely potentially spending the rest of her life in prison. And there, if that baby was alive and did have a future, then there was also a way out for that baby to find a new life as well. And I think the defense is really going to play heavily on the fear, the shock, the confusion, the adrenaline, the duress. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the only play here, that in conjunction with potentially being able to prove that one or more of the elements of the actual charge, whether or not she did something or did something that we all may believe is nefarious, that may be a way out of it when you go back to beyond a reasonable doubt. A lot of times we see a bunch of charges, and it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be convicted of all of them. I agree with you, Kristen, that it's possible there are more charges to come and potentially an amended complaint. So time will tell in this case, but it's tragic all around. Certainly with public scrutiny and everything going on, really two lives have certainly been ruined here. And it's tough to watch. But on the other side, I think that the positive to the public being involved in sort of the nation in a case like this is to bring awareness, like you said, Kristen, to things like the safe haven laws, and really advocating for doing the right thing, even when it's difficult, even when there are potentially mental health or other societal pressures on individuals. There is a path forward, and there's typically a pretty good path forward, candidly, considering the alternatives here. So Kristen and I will certainly continue to follow this case as it unfolds and starts to head to trial, unless we get, of course, a plea deal, but we'll cover that as well. If there's more evidence or anything coming out, you can expect that Kristen and I will jump back on here and cover it. Thank you again for listening to us, watching us, subscribing to us. Please comment, let us know what you like to listen to. We're looking at your comments. We love doing shows where we go through and answer any questions that you guys have. It's really a passion project for Kristen and I, purely for entertainment purposes. This is just our opinion. We are not giving legal advice, unless, of course, you need legal advice in your California family law case. If so, give us a call at Custody Queens and we can help you out.
Yeah, and you can head over to our Custody Queens channel. We have a separate channel that does more like lifestyle, parenting tips, navigating red flag situations. Are you parenting with a narcissist? All of those things. That is definitely more geared on our family law channel. But same as that channel, we do a really fun piece called Red Flag Series. We want to hear from you guys. What are your red flags? But we also want to cover the process of the legal process, the procedures. So check out that channel for anything related to lifestyle, traveling tips, chaotic mom life, and Sam and Pam, which is Sam's dog. So that is where all that is. But we will be covering this case. It will be long. It will be drawn out. After the last hearing, the judge did decide that there was enough evidence in this case to have this move forward to the grand jury, which is where the defense does not get to put up any evidence whatsoever. It is just where the prosecution puts up everything they have. It is closed. It is not available to the public. It is not open to the public. And they just decide whether or not they are going to continue moving forward with these formal indictments as the charges stand. So we are super excited to cover everything in this case, and we will pop up, even if it's 5 minutes, to talk about any new releases. And if there's anything you guys want us to cover in this case, please DM us, comment, and do not get up and leave without hitting that thumbs up button, because you liking and you subscribing allows Sam and I to get in front of more people. And we are so grateful for each and every one of you watching.
So thanks again, and until next time.